Jeffrey Canada, the program's
endorsements don't get much better than this.
Instead of helping some kids beat the odds, the Harlem Children Zone is actually changing the odds altogether. The philosophy behind the project is simple. If poverty is a disease that infects an entire community in the form of unemployment and violence, failing schools and broken homes, then we can't just treat those symptoms in isolation. We have to heal the entire community. When I'm president of the United States of America, the first part of my plan to combat urban poverty will be to replicate the Harlem Children Zone in 20 cities across the country.
That was candidate Barack Obama in the summer of 2007 at a speech laying out his urban agenda. Since becoming president, he's begun to fulfill that pledge with the Promised Neighborhoods Initiative. But many of those who've studied the history of anti-poverty programs are skeptical.
It's a mistake to call anything the silver bullet, that anything that's going to be the solution, because it's a setup.
It's pretty consistent with what's been in the past. I mean, it's still the same kind of community action model. And I think Obama comes out of that tradition, having worked in Chicago, and sort of sees that, you know, you kind of target communities in very specific ways, and then you find out what works and you replicate it in various communities as if it's a template that could be created from that. And we see through the research that doesn't work.
My fear is that by generalizing this structure, they will in fact reproduce the story of other immersion programs that we've had in the past. This is not the first, which failed to show results because they don't address lifestyle.
It's certainly not that these three experts don't think Harlem Children Zone founder Jeffrey Canada has begun to succeed in Harlem.
I'm really impressed with Canada as a leader. I think his charisma, his willingness to take responsibility, and even more impressively, his willingness to change in the face of the facts is something that I just applaud. I have nothing but admiration for him. But let's be clear, the Harlem Children Zone in its first conception is not what worked. He believed the problem was that not enough was being done. And if we do more, at least in this neighborhood, we can at last solve the problem. Okay. But what he found was that basically that didn't work, that people accepted the enhanced services that he was offering, but because it had no effect on lifestyle, it didn't actually overcome the problem.
NYU sociology professor Pedro Noguera sees another benefit to Canada's approach.
It is probably the most impressive anti-poverty program we have going on right now in the country. Part of what makes it impressive is that it's privately funded.
But Brooklyn College political scientist Noel Anderson makes a very different argument.
It is theoretical and it is unproven. You can't sustain a zone like a Harlem Children Zone without larger and much more direct job growth, job creation. Right? There's a larger issue of the economy that we can't lose sight of. The best anti-poverty program are jobs.
All three do agree Obama's plan to use Canada's program as a template will be difficult at best.
But maybe we shouldn't be so literal. What if cities apply to become promised neighborhoods on their own terms, developing programs designed to address their own particular set of needs and use their own particular set of resources? Sure, they'll still focus on this core idea of flooding the zone with services, but in unique ways. That's what they want to do here. Welcome to Newark's Central Ward.
The worst race riots since those 2 years ago in the Watts section of Los Angeles rocked New Jersey's largest city, Newark, for 5 consecutive days and nights.
These are the streets that burned 40 years ago in the cauldron of race and poverty, one of the places many say the dream died. And unlike Harlem, where development and immigration have deeply altered the historic neighborhood, the Central Ward in Newark can often feel like it's stuck in time, despite waves of programs and projects to build better housing and richer lives. Now, Noguera is helping the city try something new.
It has many of the same features of the Harlem Children's Zone. The difference is it's going to be a lot cheaper because we're going to rely a lot more on existing resources, but simply try to coordinate them more effectively.
Cheaper because Newark, like most cities in America, does not have anti-poverty leaders with ties to Wall Street like Canada has. The plan would focus on schools, social services, and job training. It would try and engage everyone.
We have a top-down strategy, good leaders getting them all in alignment to focus on the same goals. We have a bottom-up strategy going from the classroom to impact learning, and we have an outside-in strategy to make sure there's community pressure to hold the schools accountable. I think that approach could work in lots of cities where this kind of work is needed.
Meade thinks that could work, but it will be a huge challenge.
It's not primarily money that's needed. We already have money. Places like Newark are already spending more per student than the suburbs, so that isn't really the problem. The real difficulties are institutional. You have to create organizations, namely schools, with the principals and the teachers willing to teach in this way. It's very demanding.
Still, the model Newark is developing does address the one thing Anderson says is necessary: jobs, which he points out might be a better political sell for Obama as well.
And so the question becomes, how do you focus on anti-poverty and growth by saying we're looking at job creation? And I think that's probably a safer route to go than trying to create a template for a Promise Academy. And
perhaps one that will lead President Obama to sing the praises of Newark's program the next time he talks about poverty. In Newark Central Ward, I'm DeDapper for City Limits.